What if pain isn't the problem, but actually the pathway back to you? You're listening to The Leadership Wound, From Pain to Permission. I'm Amanda Rohr, your host and founder of Authentically You, coaching for embodied spiritual living and leading. This is where we get honest about the real cost of leadership, the burnout, the pretending, the rejection, and the return to your authentic self. Because this isn't about performance, it's about permission. Welcome to the leader you've always been.
Hustle may build outcomes, but it's presence that builds you. And at the end of the day, you, not your to-do list or achievements, are what truly influences the world around you. Wherever you go and whatever role you step into next, you take yourself with you, healed or unhealed. That's why running from your pain doesn't work. You can change jobs, change environments, and even change titles, but your unhealed places will follow. That's why tending matters. Welcome back to The Leadership Wound. I'm Amanda Rohr, your host and guide on this podcast, where we talk about what so many leaders are facing from one degree or another, but rarely talk about. And that's the hidden cost of leadership. Today, in our final episode of our special series, The Leadership Wound Healing Path, we arrive at both an ending and a beginning. So far together, we've walked through deeply important movements. The first, feeling the wound, which is giving ourselves permission to admit what hurts. The second is naming the wound, breaking the silence and speaking the truth. And the third, accepting the wound, releasing the need to fix or hide from it, and receiving grace. Those first steps are foundational. They are where the healing begins. They create space, holy, tender space, where your story is honored and your humanity is welcomed. But they are not where healing ends. Feeling, naming, and accepting are powerful and necessary to the process, but they are about starting the healing journey because they open the wound. They air out the places that have been suffocating under shame or fear. They loosen the grip of perfectionism and denial. But tending is what we are going to talk about today. Tending is something altogether different. Tending is where healing moves from acknowledgement to integration and where the transformation truly takes root. So today, as we step into this fourth and final part of the path, I want to invite you to consider that tending the wound is where you become. It's where you begin to give yourself permission and live into becoming your most authentic self. It's where what you know is true comes to life in how you approach your daily life. Tending is a word I love because it invites us into a rhythm, not resolution. It's not about finishing something, it's about returning to compassionate care and being fully present with who you are and who you are becoming. To tend means to listen to your body and emotions, to stay curious instead of critical, to guard what is tender and honor your humanity. To tend means to listen to your body and emotions, to stay curious instead of critical. To tend means to guard what is tender and honor your humanity. To stay rooted in truth, especially when the lies creep in. To tend means to practice compassion, especially on those hard days. And to seek safe and grounding spaces and voices. Tending is not fixing. Tending is staying. And that can be incredibly hard for leaders because leadership is fast, it's public, it's productive. But tending is slow, it's hidden, it feels unproductive because you can't always see what is being formed under the surface. But make no mistake about it, it's the holy and powerful work of healing. They say life begins in the garden, and in many ways that rings true. Creation itself reminded us of this, but for me, it's also deeply personal. The garden isn't just symbolic, it's our family livelihood and part of our everyday story. My husband owns a fourth-generation seed company and is what I lovingly call the master gardener in our family. Over the years, I've watched him season after season engage in the quiet, sacred work of tending. Not just for the plants themselves, but for the fruit they bear, fruit that in time nourishes and sustains our family. Here's what I've learned watching him and tending our garden at home. And that is, you can't rush growth. You can't pull on seedlings to make them sprout faster. You can't ignore them and expect beauty later. Tending looks like daily, ordinary care, and it takes patience. This is why my husband is the gardener and I'm not, but I'm learning as I watch him. He's constantly checking the soil, checking his rain gauge, watering when necessary, protecting new growth from harsh weather, and removing weeds and assessing if any critters have done any damage. He is patient and trusting, knowing even when he can't see it, something is happening beneath the surface. Every so often he'll say, "Amanda, do you want to come out and see what I've done in the garden?" I love those moments. Stepping into the garden, I get to see not only what's growing and being planted, but the love and care he's poured into every inch of that soil. There's always something new emerging, evidence of his quiet, faithful tending. Leadership healing is no different. You can't ignore the wound and expect wholeness. You can't force yourself to get over it. Believe me, I've tried and it doesn't work. You must tend patiently, lovingly, every single day. And while it starts hidden, it eventually grows into something visible and life-giving. You just have to trust the process. Not just for you, but for those that you lead. Because here's the hard truth. Leaders often resist tending. Why? Because tending feels slow, invisible, and vulnerable. In our performance-driven world, tending feels like a waste of time. It doesn't offer the quick wins. It won't check off the boxes on your to-do list. And when you're used to moving fast and solving problems, slowing down feels foreign and even frustrating. But healing doesn't respond to hustle. It responds to presence. Let me get a little practical here for a moment because I think it hits home. Imagine if you cut your hand deeply while rushing in the kitchen. It's painful, but instead of slowing down to clean it, care for it, and give it time to heal, you just slap a Band-Aid on and keep on moving. You keep using your hand every day, chopping, lifting, washing, without really tending the wound, without checking in to see how it's doing. And what happens? Eventually it gets irritated, infected, and that wound starts affecting everything you touch. Leadership works the same way. Maybe for you, it's the wound of chronic disappointment. You've poured yourself out. You've led with vision, with hope, with everything you've got, but nothing seems to change. People don't respond. The outcomes you longed for don't happen. You feel unseen, unappreciated, and quietly resentful. And yet, what do you keep doing? You just keep on pushing. You think, I just need to lead harder, to do more, and to toughen up. But friend, you can't hustle your way past that kind of wound. Pushing harder won't heal what's been left untended to. In fact, it often makes it worse. Healing happens at a whole different pace. It happens at the pace of presence, your full presence, and the presence of your healer, the one who created you, the one who knows that tending takes time, the one who isn't measuring your worth by how much you accomplish, but by how deeply you abide. Hustle may build outcomes, but it's presence that builds you. And at the end of the day, you, not your to-do list or achievements, are what truly influences the world around you. Wherever you go and whatever role you step into next, you take yourself with you, healed or unhealed. That's why running from your pain doesn't work. You can change jobs, change environments, and even change titles, but your unhealed places will follow. That's why tending matters. Because when you invest in healing and caring for yourself, you're not only transforming your life, you're shaping the leader who enters every room, every relationship, and every new opportunity, because you're shaping you. And this work, it matters deeply because its impact doesn't stop with you. It ripples out and touches everyone you lead and love. Being fully present with yourself and with what's stirring beneath the surface creates sacred space. It's in this space that healing can take root quietly, and in time, allow wholeness to rise up and bloom. When I got serious about this concept of presence in my own healing journey, I found that sometimes you need someone to meet you in that place. Someone who can hold hope when you feel hopeless. Someone who offers practical help when disappointment literally clouds your ability to see the situation correctly. Someone who can create a container of accountability and care. Because when you're left alone in your pain, your perspective slips away. You start believing lies. You lose sight of what's true. You begin leading with reaction rather than reflection. And here's the truth. Healing and growth require more than comfort. They require benevolent challenge. You need someone who will gently and confidentially help you see where your old beliefs and patterns are keeping you stuck. Not to shame you, but because they care about you and who you are becoming. Finding someone to walk alongside of you like a coach offers this kind of sacred balance, offering compassion that holds space for your pain, clarity that cuts through your confusion, and challenge that lovingly calls you forward into flourishing. Because the goal isn't just to feel better. We could do that by engaging in any number of our buffers. The goal of healing is to lead and live more authentically and freely, more than we ever have been before. This is why coaching is so powerful in this season of tending. It's a place to match your discouragement with truth and your uncertainty with clarity. Because what we refuse to tend will eventually bleed onto others. But what we tend becomes wisdom, tenderness, and strength. Sometimes as leaders, I think we think that if we need to take the time to tend it, it means that we're fragile or that we did something wrong to get into this place of wounding. But that isn't true. It means we are human and that we're living on this side of heaven. And in fact, tending means the opposite of being fragile. It means we are trustworthy, safe, and operating out of wholeness. Because we know that there's more going on under the surface than that which appears outwardly. Tending is working on the things that are underneath the surface. It means we're willing to look at the full picture, not just the parts we like or the roles we play, but the whole honest truth of who we are. And that word embodiment that I use as part of my brand name, it's there for a reason. When I created Authentically You, coaching for embodied spiritual living and leading, I didn't choose that word lightly. Because for so many leaders, myself included, it's easy to live from the neck up, to lead with ideas, to make decisions from pressure, to perform without pause, all while completely being disconnected from what's really going on inside. But wholeness doesn't happen in theory. It happens when truth seeps into every area of our being. When your body, your mind, your heart, and spirit are all aligned in the same direction. That's what embodiment is, and that's why it's central to everything I teach and practice. Let me take a moment more to define a little bit more in depth what embodiment means. Embodiment means living with full presence and awareness in your body. where your emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical experiences are connected and in communication with each other and not compartmentalized. It's being in your body, not disconnected from it. It's noticing what you feel, both physically and emotionally, and honoring that as real information, not something to ignore. Embodiment is allowing truth to take up space, not just in your thoughts, but in your breath, in your muscles, in your posture, and in the energy that you use to show up for life. And here's why it matters. Because unprocessed wounds don't just live in your mind. They live in your nervous system. They show up in your tone of voice, in your reactions. They show up in your posture, in your fatigue, and in your tension. But what does it look like when you're not living from embodiment? What does it look like when you're disconnected from your bodies? Well, it often looks like when you power through the levels of exhaustion that you might feel instead of honoring your limits. Or when you snap at others and wonder later why you were so reactive. Or maybe it's when you carry chronic tension or burnout and don't even notice it until you actually crash. It also shows up when you make decisions from fear or urgency instead of from discernment. And it keeps producing and performing long after your soul has been asking for rest. Does any of this resonate with you? Can you see yourself in any of those descriptions? When we live from a place of disengagement from ourselves and our body, we justify it all by saying, this is just what leaders do. But the truth is, you can't lead well if you're disconnected from yourself and not listening to what your body and mind are telling you. When we neglect embodiment, we lead from a fractured self instead of fullness. We show up performative instead of present, meaning we focus on managing perceptions instead of being our whole grounded selves at the very moment. We say what we think we should say. We lead how we think we're supposed to lead. But underneath, we're often disconnected from our own truth and from the people in front of us. What we're actually doing is surviving instead of thriving. But when we tend to our wounds through embodiment, we build capacity. We stay grounded. We respond rather than react. And we lead with wisdom that comes from knowing ourselves and listening for the voice of God in the midst of it all. Embodied tending says, I am attuned to my emotions, not controlled by them. Embodiment says, I recognize my body's signals. I recognize when I'm fatigued or when I have tension or feeling uneasy, and I respond with care. Embodiment says, I listen more often for the voice of God rather than the voice of my inner critic or the voice of others. And embodiment says, I make leadership decisions from a place of groundedness, not from my old wounds. Tending turns healing into being authentically present with who we are right now and how we're actually showing up right now. Not who we think we should be or who we hope to become someday. Tending comes from a place of present groundedness, and it begins to lead ourselves with wholeness, clarity, and integrity. Because while God holds the past, the present, and future, we can only show up here and now, in this moment. And this moment is the only place where healing happens, the only place where presence is possible. And it's the sacred ground where the Spirit gently whispers, I am here with you. So let's get practical for a moment. How do we tend the wound in real embodied ways? Let me offer 4 simple but transformational practices. The first is pause and feel. Pause and feel when hard emotions arise, like disappointment or anger or sadness. Don't rush through them or power through them. Instead, slow down, sit down, or step outside and walk it out. Allow yourself to feel, and feel without judgment. Now is not the time to judge your thoughts or your body. It's time to get curious and to listen to them. You can say things like, "Wow, that's interesting. I wonder why my body or mind is offering that up to me right now." Let the emotion move through your body, because tending means honoring your emotions as messengers, not enemies. The second is guard the gate. Listen to the voice of truth. Leaders are constantly surrounded by noise, and a lot of it. Other people's expectations, pressures, perceptions, and demands. Tending your wound means protecting your mind and heart. Start with this. Before the world speaks, I will listen for the one voice that matters the most. I will listen for the voice of God. This is why I created my free morning meditation, to help you start your day grounded, aligned, and listening to the voice that says, "You're already loved. You are becoming. You are enough." If that sounds like something that would be helpful as you start your morning off, you can download it right now at authenticallyu.org and begin tending from the moment you wake up. Before the world begins to demand things of you, you can start your day off centered and in peace. The third way to begin tending in practical ways is to set gentle boundaries. I say gently because they're there to serve you and your growth, not to be tight and restricting. Because tending is also about protecting what is tender. That may mean saying no and doing it without guilt. Whenever I had the opportunity to invite my volunteers to help out with something, I'd always start by saying, no is always a valid answer. Because honoring someone else's capacity matters, especially when they're offering their time and energy freely. Now, working with staff or employees is a bit different. They're getting paid to do a job, but even then, I'd say something like this. Be honest about where you are. People can't support what they don't understand. If you don't speak up, others won't know what you're carrying. And at the end of the day, no one can advocate for you like you can. And part of tending to yourself, whether you're volunteering or in a paid position, is learning to speak up, set boundaries, and tell the truth about what you need and what you can actually accomplish. Gentle boundaries may also mean limiting access to toxic people or stepping back from spaces that stir up old wounds. It may mean choosing rhythms of work and rest that align with your true self. It's important to know that boundaries are not selfish. They are stewardship. They are how healing stays protected while it continues to take root and grow. And when we think back to the analogy of the garden again, boundaries are everywhere there too. When delicate plants first go into the ground before the weather is warm and steady, we shelter them. We cover them, shielding them from the harsh winds and cold nights. Later, as those plants grow, they still need boundaries, but now for support. Think about your tomato plants. Without cages or stakes, they sprawl out. They break under their own weight. They become vulnerable when they are not protected. But when you gently guide them with helpful structures around them, they rise. They grow tall, healthy, strong, and usually prolific. Not because they're restricted, but because they are supported. And the same is true for you. Boundaries are not about boxing you in. They're about creating the structure and support needed for healthy, authentic growth. When you tend your wound by honoring your limits and setting compassionate boundaries, you are giving yourself the very best conditions to heal and to thrive. And lastly, seek safe reflection. Don't tend your garden of healing alone. Healing is a deeply personal journey, but it was never meant to be done alone. Yes, over time, you'll learn tools that will help you process on your own. You'll grow the capacity to become your own coach in many ways, noticing patterns, naming emotions, and choosing aligned responses. That's all part of the goal. But even the most self-aware leaders still need others. Tending your wound means inviting safe, trusted people into your process. People who can hold space when you're unraveling. People who can reflect truth when you've lost perspective. And people who can see what you might miss, not to fix you, but to stay with you on the course. A coach, a spiritual director, a therapist, or a wise peer can help you not just think differently, but heal deeply and offer practical ways to move forward and not be stuck in those repeated patterns. Because healing may begin in solitude, but it always deepens in community, in other authentic relationships. This is why I offer one-on-one coaching spaces for leaders like you to help you stay with the tending and not abandon it when it gets hard. As we close out this series, The Healing Work of Leadership, I want to leave you with this encouragement. If you find yourself getting discouraged or disappointed in the process of your healing, don't worry, you're normal, you're human, we've all been there. But don't give up. Don't assume something's wrong with you, and don't try to push through it alone. Reach out, get support. A lot of leaders stop after the first 3 steps, the feeling, naming, and accepting, because tending feels so different than just plugging along. It is slower, it's less measurable, and it doesn't offer quick wins or instant relief. But it is in the tending that real transformation takes root. So if you're tempted to quit, know this: you're not broken, you're not behind, you're right on time. And the growth you long for, it comes through this part, not around it. And if you continue to trust the process, even slowly, even imperfectly, and keep moving forward one step at a time, I promise you, there is hope and joy on the other side. Picture this for a moment. You're no longer waking up dreading the day ahead. You're no longer leading from pressure, fear, or the need to prove yourself. The swirl of self-doubt is quieter. Your boundaries are clear. You know when to say yes and when to say no. You have rhythms that ground you. Your body feels more at home. You speak with more confidence. You lead with more presence. And those same old triggers, well, they're just not there anymore. The ones that used to hijack your day or keep you up at night, they no longer have the same grip. You recognize them, you breathe through them, and you lead from a place of calm and not reactivity. You're no longer reacting to the expectations of others. You're rooted in your why. You move with clarity and conviction because your leadership is no longer performative, it's aligned. That version of you that you've been dreaming of, it's not some unreachable dream. It's already within you, under the surface, waiting to emerge as you tend the garden of your healing. As I mentioned at the beginning of the series, I want that for all leaders, to be healthy and leading authentically. Because the world needs more healthy leaders. So I encourage you to take that next step. If you feel that gentle nudge, the pull towards a more authentic way of living and leading, don't ignore it. Maybe for you, the next step is setting aside some time to journal or a couple days for a retreat. Maybe the next step is to walk through those 4 practical ways of tending that we explored. The pause and feel, which is to create space to actually sit with your emotions instead of pushing them down. The guard the gate, to be mindful of the voices that you're allowing in and start your day grounded in God's truth. To set gentle boundaries, protecting what's tender by honoring your limits and creating supportive structures. And the last one, seek safe reflection, inviting trusted people into your process so you're not walking this alone. Whatever step you feel inclined to take, don't wait. Invest in yourself. Say yes to your own healing because your healing matters, and it's the beginning of leading like you. Thanks for joining me in this sacred series of the healing work of leadership. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so excited to continue this journey with you. If this episode resonated with you, would you leave a review? It helps other leaders find this healing work. And be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. For more resources to help you live and lead from your true self, visit my website at authenticallyu.org. Until next time, lead like you.